We are back to my guest tonight, the President of Latvia, President Egils Levits, coming right now. Thanks for being with us, Mr. President. This is my first question. Mr. President, undoubtedly the world order issued from 1945 under US dominance is obsolete. A new world order is shaping up. How do you view it?
I see that there is a problem that Russia wants to return the previous time of the Soviet Empire. But the democratic world is always supporting the rules-based international order, and Latvia is also supporting this order because such order guarantees the peace in the world.
Latvia, among its 26 other partners, is part of a divided Europe to face the challenges ahead, represented especially by Russian interferences, is not in time to build a European defense.
Yes, but we are seeing what is divided Europe. I see that with the growing importance of European Union in the world in the last decades, Europe became more unified as ever before. Of course, we are discussing in the European Union and in NATO several issues, but we are a value-based order, value-based community, and we have the same goals. But in general, I see the tendency to more powerful and more united Europe.
Latvia left the Soviet orbit, Mr. President, and joined NATO 18 years ago in 2004. Since that period, did you always feel threatened by Vladimir Putin?
Russia is not agree with this development and trying with aggressive behavior to change it. But we are firm in defense of our values and our democratic order.
Mr. President, in 1940, Stalin's troops invaded Latvia. 82 years later, do you fear an invasion by Vladimir Putin?
Article 5 of NATO treaty says that aggression against one member state of NATO means automatically aggression against all 30 members. So NATO is based on mutual solidarity. This is Article 5. But there is also Article 3 of the Treaty of NATO, which says that each member state, also Latvia too, should be prepared to defend themselves. And of course, we are seeing that the international environment is not very good, and so we are preparing also for our self-defense. And I should stress that the self-defense of each member state plus solidarity of all member states is the basis of security of all NATO member states.
Are we on the way to Yalta #2? How do you explain Vladimir Putin's will to get 30 years back to the time of the old Soviet Empire?
Yes, I agree with you. It is our obsession. But of course, in authoritarian regimes like in Russia, it is possible for the regime to use the sentiments of lost colonies, of lost territories, of lost empire for internal reasons in order to strengthen the regime. And that is what Putin regime is doing in Russia. They are trying also to rewrite the history. They write the history to see that the Soviet Empire lost not because of the systemic failure, but because of betrayal and the politics of Gorbachev. So I can also see that it's not a very exact comparison, but after the First World War, many German soldiers thought that they had not lost the war, but there was a betrayal. And exactly this feeling was used by National Socialists 15 years later in order to come to the power. I think this is a very dangerous legend But we see that Russia is trying to go after this legend, the lost empire.
To explain his aggressive attitude, would you say Vladimir Putin never really accepted the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, which was the prelude of the fall of the Soviet Empire in 1991, which explains he wants to revive it?
Of course, in this ideology of Russia now, it is a failure of the system of the Soviet Union, and it is for internal reasons for Russia, this ideology to legitimize the aggressive behavior. But I see, in principle, they have not accepted the change of the world, 89, 90, because not the failure of the empire was the problem, but the freedom, the will to freedom of the captive nations of eastern part of Europe under Soviet regime. This was the reason why Soviet Union crashed. And of course, we are Democrats and we cannot say that it was a failure. It was a right thing in order to renew the independence and to establish a democratic, free system.
Mr. President, is, according to you, American President Joe Biden strong enough to defend Europe's strategic interests in spite of its political blunders?
I see that NATO is the most successful defense military alliance in the history. And of course, including the leading nation of NATO, United States. United States is acting in accordance with all member states of NATO, and also the talks between United States and Russia are transparent. And President Biden had said to me and to other presidents of NATO member states that he is informing of all the details of the talks, and also the principle, nothing about you without you. So we are supporting this bilateral talks on international level, but also NATO has given an answer to the demands of Russia. There could be some points which is possible to discuss, for example, some areas of trust building between NATO and Russia. But in general, I would say each nation is free to choose their allies and to choose the internal order. And we have chosen democracy, and that is.
Are we sure Ukraine is a problem as long as we know that the US has no plan to integrate it to NATO? What's the help Putin's focusing on that?
We are supporting for the principle that also Ukraine and other countries could join the NATO when all member states agree on that. Now the point is not reached, but NATO as an alliance of very, I would say, powerful nations, including also in the first place, United Nations, we are supporting Ukraine also with military equipment and also financially and with economic means. And we are giving all possible support for Ukraine to strengthen the defense capacity of Ukraine. This is the policy of NATO today. And also Latvia, as a small member state of NATO, shows solidarity with Ukraine. We also will send military equipment to Ukraine.
Mr. President, could Europe still find a modus vivendi with Putin, or is it too late in spite of the supposed ongoing dialogue, as we could see with the recent face-to-face between President Macron and President Putin?
Dialogue is always good, and we are open to dialogue. NATO is open to dialogue in all member states. Also, Latvia is also open to dialogue. But we should defend our independence, our sovereignty, and our democracy. This is our principle. This is our basis of our values. And we are not threatening someone. We are not threatening Russia. We are defending only our freedom. And I should remind us that Russia has seized a part of territory of Georgia, 2008, then Crimea and Donbass in Ukraine, 2014, and now they're threatening Ukraine again. It is not so that Ukraine has seized a part of territory of Russia, but Russia has annexed a part of territory of Ukraine. These are the facts, and we cannot accept that because we are committed to international rules-based order, which is basis for the peace in the world.
One can make Putin change his mind. Is he afraid of sanctions?
Putin is, I assume, a rational person. And if he will see that the answer of the West, of united West, of united NATO member states, European Union member states, is strong and firm, then he should weigh up the costs and the benefits. And when the costs for Russia will be higher, then, of course, as a rational person, he will say, "Oh, it's not worth to risk such an aggression." And therefore, for the peace in Europe, decisive are the united answer of NATO, united answer of European member states. And that means, in first place, also economic sanctions. They should be heavy. And now they are discussed. Several possibilities are now on the table. They all are discussed. No one possibility is excluded, so that our answer will be firm and strong.
Do you fear the rise of radical Islam in Europe?
First of all, I would say this is not a problem in Latvia because we don't have Islamic minority in principle, so that it is not a problem for Latvia. But of course, it is a danger for Europe as a whole. In many European countries, there is a second and third generation of young people, immigrants from Islamic countries who are radicalizing themselves online or in another way. And democratic order should have a system of self-defense, and we cannot tolerate radical, violent positions in democratic countries. And we see that there is a threat of terrorism, but we are also politically in another way supporting the politics that will diminish this threat.
Mr. President, Iran nuclear bomb seems to be on the way sooner than later. Would it be a threat for Israel or the life insurance of the Islamic regime?
Our approach is so that we see that only negotiations and building trust between both sides could lead to a solution of the problems. Of course, I see that the solution takes time, but trust-building measures are possible already, let's say, soon. And I see that in long term a positive development.
Mr. President, what about the rise of anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe and around the world? Is not it a real danger?
I see that that it is not a specific problem of Eastern Europe. If we compare the numbers of anti-Semitic incidents, for example, in Latvia and in many Western European countries or democracies, that we can see that there are only few such incidents in Latvia per capita, I would say, as in comparison with other European states. But in general, I would say it is an old problem. and we should do all possible to combat anti-Semitism. I personally participated in Malmö in November last year in the conference about anti-Semitism and combating anti-Semitism, and I said also that each expression of anti-Semitism should not be tolerated. And there is, of course, a problem of social networks, which allows much more easier to spread hate speech, including anti-Semitism. And our position is that this is a new situation, this technological possibilities to spread hate speech. And we are supporting regulation, a certain kind of regulation of the global social network platforms in order to ban hate speech, including, of course, anti-Semitism.
Is the Triple Alliance, China, Russia, Iran, a danger for the Western camp?
How the alliance is behaving in the world. We are monitoring the situation like Europe and NATO, so that we can see that there are some signs that authoritarian regimes are coming closer to each other, and there is a growing divide between democratic countries on one side and the authoritarian regimes on the other side. And the alliance, what you mentioned, is a certain sign of this development.
Mr. President, when we look at the ongoing development in the Middle East and in Europe, are we, according to you, on the verge of a potential third world conflict?
Objectively, I see that now the danger is greater than in the last 30 years. But I trust to reasonableness of the people and to reasonableness of the governments, so that no one wants such a war which will destroy the planet. There would be no winner. So that I see that there is a certain danger, but I do not believe that it happens.
Finally, Mr. President, what is the message you want to convey to Vladimir Putin, to Europe, and to Joe Biden?
So, 3 messages. First, to President Putin. I would say to President Putin that the rules-based international order is in the interest of all countries in the world, including Latvia, including Russia, and we should concentrate on our internal problems to solve the developed economy and so on, and also to become closer by the collaboration between neighbors. So this is my message to President Putin. My message to Europe is that Europe should play a more active role in the world, because still Europe is the most powerful economic player in the world, now one of the most powerful, and we should also to use our economic weight in order to promote peace, to promote the solution of global problems like climate change. We are really champions in that, and we should do it in order to achieve or to promote this goal. And my message to President Biden would be, first of all, I would like to thank US administration and President Biden for the support of European security. So to say, the transatlantic link is decisive for the security in Europe. And I also would thank President Biden for the promotion of alliance and awareness that all democracies in the world belongs together in order to defend and to develop our system.
Mr. President, I want to thank you very much for having taken time to share your vision of international politics, especially in this part of the world where you are and with all the trouble around you.